Um, so back to your college experience for your undergrad, what was the application process like for you?
Oh,
If
wait, applying for college?
yes.
Okay. Hmm. Let's see. I remember. Well, we talk about the actual applications, or even preparing for the SATs, or all of that.
All of it,
All of
just
it.
the process in
Mhm.
general.
I remember. I do remember one thing, is that I remember feeling a sense of bitterness preparing for the SATs because I went to a really wealthy prep school, and you had kids who could easily afford tutors. I didn't have any of that. My tutor was my older sister's Barron's book. That was it. I was just so bad about that. Um, and just feeling like, oh, I always have to do more than everyone else.
Mm-hmm.
Why aren't things handed to me as easily as for these other students? Thankfully, I did well enough. I mean, it wasn't spectacular, but my the main scores were solid. They were on par with the application pool at that time for the schools that I applied.
Mm-hmm.
I'll leave it at that. As for the application process itself, I wanted to get into a solid, respectable school in the Northeast. I only applied to schools in the Northeast, and to not end up with a ton of loans. That was a big one. And I mean, my mom, God bless her, she was like, "You pick whatever. I will take on whatever debt necessary. I don't want this to hinder you. I want you to be your best self." But thankfully, she didn't have to resort to that. As for the applications itself, beyond like choosing schools, I did receive a lot of guidance or some guidance from my guidance counselor named Mr. Momo. I wonder if he's still working, but he was really well known for being like the it guy to place students. And I was really happy that we had two college counselors, and I was really happy that I was in his group because he was known for having the golden touch. And in retrospect, I realized how fortunate I was because in my school, my high school, we had colleges come visit. We had representatives come visit us from the institutions, like the dean of admissions for Penn, or at least the one that was in charge of our area, the Northeast, came to visit us, spoke to us one on one. Yeah. So it was just so in retrospect, even though I didn't have all the benefits that these other kids had, I had some.
Yeah.
You know, I did. But yeah, no, I did what I had to do, and I crossed my fingers. I remember a lot of students were doing early decision, early action.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, a lot. Oh yeah, a lot. And also, there were a ton of them were legacies, but I didn't have any of that, so I just did regular decision. I remember applying to 6 schools. 6 schools. I remember Momo saying, "Oh, you'll be fine with 6. You'll be fine," and he was right.
So tell me a little bit about tell me about your experience as a college student
Experiences.
throughout your whole career, throughout your whole college, like
Oh,
higher education career.
well, I mean, during my undergrad years, I really loved it. I love Philly. Oh, if someone were to tell me, oh, we're gonna offer you a solid paying job in Philly, I'd probably take it in a heartbeat. I'd choose Philly over New York. Over a lot of New Yorkers would probably hang me for that. I mean, it was very rigorous. Penn is known for having really type A students, very competitive, and not just in terms of grades, but just doing it all.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone's doing this and involved in that, and these extracurriculars and that. We put ourselves through so much pressure. Oh my god! And I saw that at Princeton as well among the undergrads. Yeah, and that's when I started to realize, like, oh, there are consequences to being such a high octane student. There are mental consequences to that. That, I mean, when you're younger, you're just going after that one thing. You want that one goal, but do that long enough, and it can end up it can end up harming you. And that's something I've had to reckon with as I've gotten older. Let's see, what else? I was a solid student. Of course, certain times I did struggle, but I can count, I was so type A that I can count with one hand of all my final grades. I can count with one hand the number of B's I got throughout my entire time there.
Wow.
And they're all B pluses. I was really type A, which is probably how I was able to do grad school from undergrad. Most people, probably need to go do a master's or something or get some work experience. But yeah, no, that it kind of sowed the seeds of, sure, in the short term, I can be really high octane and just give my all to this one thing, but it's not sustainable.
Mm-hmm.
And I really reckoned with that when I was in grad school.
Speaking of experiences as a college student, how was it to be a first generation college student? Did you feel that those pressures that come with sometimes being a first generation student?
Well, the pressure to be successful.
Mm-hmm.
I think something that I've wrestled with, and it's come more along now with the PhD, is this distance between me and my family, particularly my mom, because she has an 8th grade education. She doesn't, this whole concept of writing papers or whatnot it doesn't always click. And I mean, she could never really help me with homework. Sometimes I still laugh at her for the following memory. I will never forget this. I was 7 years old in the 2nd grade when this happened. She one time helped me with my homework. And I got it all wrong. All wrong. And I remember just looking at that and telling myself, I'll never ask her for help again in terms of homework.
Yeah.
Never. And I've never asked her for help with that in terms of homework.
Yeah.
Never. So yeah, there's certain pressures that don't click with my family. They're just like, oh, but you're really smart. You always have a way of figuring things out. And it's like, well, no, but it still is really, really hard. Let's see. But no, thinking about it, I feel like high school was worse than in undergrad, oddly enough. But I went to a very weird, really weird prep school. That's why it was that intense. So Penn was also intense, but I don't remember ever needing or ever thinking to myself, damn, I need a tutor.
Do you feel like you had more resources available to you as a first gen?
Well, not even so much about resources, but I had more flexibility in terms of courses that I wanted to take. So I didn't have to do pre-calc, or physics or whatever.
Yeah.
I just did things that really spoke to me, and the things that spoke to me, more often than not, I did well, if not great at.
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't say I was a star student. I was mostly getting A minuses, but I did well.
They're still A's.
Yeah.
So how has your experience been at A&M so far?
Well, I really like my colleagues. I think they try their best. They know what the town is like, and they know that, okay, this is a tough transition unless you're used to a town like this one.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I think for me, what's really colored my experience is what happened to Stephanie Canizales. I don't know if you know what happened, but she was a professor, first year professor last year, who left early. She couldn't even finish her courses that she was teaching because of issues in the classroom. So that really freaked me out because on paper, she and I have very similar profiles. We're both from cities. She's from LA and I'm from New York. We're both Latina. And I was like, oh my God, what? If this happened to her, well, I mean, I'm no better off, and how am I? How am I different? As to how that happened, you know, I've talked to different people, and it's one of those things, one of those complicated issues that everyone has a different story.
Right.
And it's not so much that they're lying, it's just, it's a complicated story. People remember things differently. So for me, you know, just learning from that, I told myself, okay, kids in general will, in the classroom will try you. That's just the nature of the game. They will try you. Is there greater likelihood for certain types of professors to get tried? Yes. Yes. But at the end of the day, I have to protect myself and I have to have measures in place against that. So, yeah. No, yeah, in terms of teaching, it's that nothing crazy like what Stephanie Canizales has happened. You know, it is a huge learning curve involved with teaching, but normal stuff that I think any professor would go through, I'm going through. But yeah, no, I think in terms of living here in this area, being at A&M, the hardest is that I really am all alone. I don't have any family nearby. I left everything behind for this job. All my friends, everything. I don't even have, like, none of my friends are here. So that's that. I mean, as anyone would say, it's hard to deal with. It's very solitary.
Especially in such a small town,
Yeah.
too.
It's a small town, and like
Mostly college students.
it's mostly college students, and there's just not much to do.
Yeah.
You know, like, I'm not going to go to Northgate.
Yeah.
I don't care to go. You know, that's not my scene.
Don't do that.
No, there's just not much to do for someone in my age range
Okay,
and of my particular interests.
Is there something that, like, you've loved so far?
Or liked.
Yeah, or liked.
Or liked.
So far.
Or liked.
I really love the cheap rent because I have a 2-bedroom apartment.
Nice.
I love it. It's my first time living on my own, and I really enjoy it.
Nice.
Because I don't know. I don't know if I've always been an introvert, but I think academia definitely does. If it probably attracts introverts and makes us even more introverted.
Yeah.
I can be very introverted and not talk to people, you know, for a good couple of days. Or at least not in person. Maybe like by phone or something, or text. I do text a lot, but yeah, it's not unheard of for me to spend days and not see an actual person.
Okay. Last question. What advice would you give a student who is first generation and is interested in a college degree?
Oh, I feel like I'd be terrible at this because because like I have to check myself. My experiences are very unique. To be a prep school kid is not like I was trained for a long time.
Okay.
What do you think has helped you the most from that training?
I mean, it's really like just knowing how to handle a lot of work has been really helpful. Knowing how to read, knowing how to write, you know. But in terms of like survival skills that could help someone else who wouldn't have those, you know, that skill set. Let me see. I think that, you know, you're going to go through a lot of pressure if you have some sort of mental health issue or any sort of issue. You should seek help. Never be too proud to ask for help.
Yeah. I mean,
Definitely. Yeah, it's important. Is there anything that we didn't cover that you would like to add?
No, I'm good for the moment. I mean, if you have any other questions, you can shoot.
Okay.
yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so
Thank
much.
you so much.